501. Also, blank sheets are available for our in-house audience, and just hold them up and someone will be around to pick them up. Our scheduled ending time is 9 p.m. and at approximately 8:45 we'll give each of the candidates up to 1 minute to give a closing statement. We're going to start with the two mayor candidates, and then we're going to take a short break, and then we'll have the council candidates take their positions up at the desk. We have two of the three candidates for mayor who will be here tonight, and 6 of the 9 council candidates will be here tonight. And all of the candidates were invited, and some of them chose not to be here. So if you have no further questions, I'm going to turn it over to Richard Harden. Anybody? Okay, Dick?
Thanks, Frank. Good evening, everyone. Let me reiterate a plea for questions from not only our audience here at City Hall, but our TV audience. The more questions we get, and the variety of questions, I think will help us flesh out the issues that the voters have and get the candidates' responses to those questions. Our two mayoral candidates are the incumbent, Mr. Carmen Serac, and also here tonight is a challenger, John Sheehan. At this time, it's an opportunity to give opening statements. I think we'll give it to the challenger first, Mr. Sheehan. For a minute and a half, can you tell us why you want to be mayor of the city of Oakdale?
Thanks. Once again, he said my name is John Sheehan. I'm 21 years old. I work as a web developer at Century College. I've been in the tech industry since I was 15 years old. I've owned 2 businesses. One failed pretty miserably. The other went pretty well for being in high school. I want to make it clear I'm not trying to fool anybody here. I'm not necessarily as well versed in all the issues as my opponents probably are, and it's unfortunate Dave couldn't be here. But I do think I have a good general understanding of the city of Oakdale. I think I have a lot to offer. I rely on common sense. I'm honest. What you see is what you get with me. Like I said, I'm not trying to fool anybody. I do tend to be more fiscally conservative, so that's something you might want to keep in mind. Other than that, I told my friends I'd run for mayor, so I paid the $5 and got my name on the ballot, and here I am. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Mr. Serac.
Okay, first off, I'd like to thank the Oakdale Business Association for putting on this forum. My name's Carmen Serac. I'm 55 years old, married. I have 2 adult children. I'm an insurance agent with American Family Insurance. Been an agent with them for 25 years. I've served on the Oakdale City Council for 12 years, 4 as mayor. And in those 12 years, I think the city of Oakdale has thrived and become a great city. You can see it in the parks, in the commercial industrial businesses that we've brought in. You can see it in the band shell, ice arena. We've made the quality of living in the city of Oakdale, I believe, a lot better in the last 12 years than a lot of people thought could happen. And you only do that with good staff. And I think the most important thing that a council person or a mayor has to realize is that your staff is the most important people that you have. And without staff, none of this gets done. No matter what, you give them direction, but if you don't have the right people around you, it is not going to happen. And that's what I bring to the table, is that I can put good people around me, things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Serac. I'm going to start with you as the incumbent with our first series of questions. You are seeking re-election for mayor, and you were a member of the city council prior to that. What would you like to accomplish in your second term that you have not been able to do up until this point?
Yeah, there's a few things I'd like to accomplish. I'd like to improve the quality of life in Oakdale. I'd like to improve the park system even more than we have right now. I would like to see a community center eventually in the city. Those are the 2 main things, and also bring in good quality commercial business that keeps our taxes down. In the last 12 years, our taxes, I can give you an example. In 1994, the taxes on a $200,000 home was $773, the city taxes. City taxes in the year 2003 will be $7.85. That's $12 since 1994. That's $1.72 a year. I think that's a pretty darn good deal for what we're getting.
Mr. Sheehan, as challenger, what item or items would you hope to accomplish if you were elected mayor?
Well, I don't have a lot in mind. One things that, coming from a technology standpoint, I'd really like to see is a revamp of the city's website. Currently, it doesn't allow for those with disabilities to access it very easily. It's not standards compliant. So that's one thing I'd like to see changed, but that's not necessarily the first thing I'd sit down and try to do. I would try to not raise property taxes. The last thing I want is to raise my dad's property taxes and then have to be charged rent because of it. So that's one thing I'd like to not do, if possible. Now, there are a lot of unforeseen things that could happen, and I could see it possibly very remote chance of having to raise property taxes. So I can't give you a flat-out promise that, no, I would not support a property tax increase. But in general, nobody wants higher taxes, and I would do everything I could not to raise taxes. Some of the other things I'd like to see, some improvements in the parks. Just like Carmen, I guess I think we all want to see quality of life improvements in Oakdale, and I'd do whatever I could to support that.
I'm going to stay with you, Mr. Sheehan, with the next question. The questioner says that a lot of elected officials talk about reducing the size and scope of government without offering any specifics. Could you name 2 specific city programs or services that you would reduce if necessary? And in the alternative, could you name 2 city programs you would like to expand if possible?
No. I couldn't name specifics, although I would be in favor of trimming unnecessary city staff if that were the case. I don't know of any specific stuff for the answer to that question.
Mr. Sirac, the same question to you. 2 specific city programs or services that you would cut if necessary, and 2 that you'd like to expand if possible.
Well, the 2 city services, probably if push came to shove, it'd be in the park department. All the non-essential departments I would look at if we had to cut anywhere. And expand, if we're going to expand, I'd like to expand in the same areas that we'd cut if there was a reduction.
I'm going to stay with candidate Sirac on this question. What types of businesses would you like to see come into the city of Oakdale, and what are your plans to attract such businesses?
Well, I'd still like to see more sit-down restaurants. I think we need more restaurants. Commercial, industrial. I'd like to see quality commercial, industrial buildings go up, and I think we've accomplished that. You look at the buildings that have gone up. I mean, these are not junky-looking buildings. They're nice-looking buildings. We have a building specifications that these buildings have to be built by. So I would continue to bring in good quality commercial business that pays quality wages and have quality jobs.
Mr. Sheehan, I'm going to ask you the same question, please. What type of businesses would you like to see come into the city of Oakdale, and what would your plans be to attract those types of businesses?
Well, I'd like to see more things to do. The movie theaters, that was a good step. Sit-down restaurants are definitely something I'd like to see more of, so I don't have to travel as far to eat. I'd like to see more technology companies in the area, mainly because I'd like to get a better job closer to home. Technology companies, things to do. What would I do to attract them? I'd try to do whatever I could with it that was within my power to remove barriers to allow more business in the area, at the same time keeping in mind the interests of the majority of the population in Oakdale. Make sure I do whatever's in the best interest of most people, not just people in a specific area.
Thank you. Mr. Sirac, I have a question here about a specific piece of property in the city. What do you feel should be done with the land west of Ideal and south of Highway 5 and north of Interstate 694, currently referred to as the Raleigh property?
Okay, the Raleigh property, we are working with the Muir Company on a project there that would include like a village setting that you come in off the freeway, and it'd be like its own little city. It'd have shops, restaurants, may have a Cub food. That's what we're working on right now, and that's basically what I'd like to see. There's some high-end development that includes like a big grocery store and stuff like that.
Mr. Sheehan, you familiar with the property? You have ideas for the property?
No, but I like his idea. Sounds good to me. I mean, I don't have enough facts to make an official answer on that question, but like I said, that sounds good to me.
Mr. Sheehan, question here. What do you think would be your greatest strength if you were elected mayor?
I think I have a pretty good feel for, I guess, common sense. I take situation as I can see a situation from beginning to end and see the facts and then go based on that. I also think I'm painfully honest sometimes. You ask a lot of my friends, they're probably a little sick of hearing what I have to say a lot, but people always know what's on my mind. So I'm pretty accessible too. I expect that from my friends too. If I'm going to be honest with you, then I would hope people would be honest with me too. Other council members, citizens, business owners, whoever.
Mr. Serac, we have a technical question. What is TIF financing, and how is it used appropriately? What are its pitfalls?
Well, TIF is used, really TIF has been used to bring in businesses, a lot of businesses that we have. We use TIF to bring in for land, construction of the land, improvements on the land it's used for, basically.
Could you explain how tax increment financing, commonly referred to as TIF, works?
Well, I don't know the exact details. That's why I say I have good people around me to to figure all that out. But TIF is usually worked where the taxes are eventually paid. They have like a 5-year or 7-year TIF district, and in that district, like I-Mation or whatever, they use the money for the improvements on the roads and everything, and so that is deducted for those years.
Mr. Sheehan,
They do pay school taxes. So,
Mr. Sheehan, is there something that you'd like to add to that or elaborate?
No, he got the fun part.
Okay. Next, a question about governmental relationships, one layer amongst other layers of government. The question is, and I'm going to ask Mr. Sheehan first, which candidate for governor do you believe best mirrors your view of what the relationship between state and local government should be?
That's a heavy question. I'm going to abstain from that question. I think it carries too much weight endorsing a certain gubernatorial candidate that I think I would like to think that it would have no effect on the race, but I think it would. So,
well, let me ask it a different way. What is your view of what the relationship should be between state government and local government, such as the city of Oakdale?
Well, I'd like to see the city have as much control over local matters as possible, and I know that's not always possible, and there are a lot more factors to each individual situation, but my preference would be that the city maintains as much control over local matters as is possible.
Mr. Serac, do you have a view on which candidate for governor has a view of state and local governmental relations that best mirrors your view of what it should be?
I agree with John on this. I totally agree. I mean, I don't know who brought up the question, but it really, we have to work with whoever gets elected to those positions. And to come out right now and say that I'm for, Tim Penny or whoever, if he loses, then I have to work with the other party. And so I can work with any of them. It's a matter of getting a working relationship with whoever gets elected.
Here's a question coming from our at-home audience, and I want to again encourage those viewing at home to call in with your questions. The question is, and I'm going to address this to Mr. Sheehan, even though you're running for a city office, what is your stance on the school district levy? How would its outcome affect the city of Oakdale?
Well, my stance is one that's probably going to get me in trouble for saying it, but I think that if you vote no, and if everybody voted no, it's going to force the school district to reassess its priorities and make sure that the absolute essentials are taken care of in the budget and the non-essentials or borderline non-essentials are eliminated. So because I just graduated from North High School 3 years ago, and I know there's a lot of non-essentials in the school district, I think I would like to see them be forced to deal with it. So I'll be voting no. I mean, you can take that for whatever it's worth. I think one downfall of that is if the schools don't have enough money, it's harder for them to have a positive impact on the area. So, but to answer the question, I think if we cut the amount of money that we give to the schools, they'll be forced to focus on the essentials and reduce the non-essentials.
Mr. Surratt, your views on the school district levy and how it would affect the city of Oakdale if it were either to pass or to fail?
Okay, my view is that I'm in support of the levy. I think if it fails, it's going to affect property taxes, affect your property values in the city of Oakdale. If a levy keeps failing year after year after year, you're going to end up like White Bear Lake, where people don't want to move in there. They want to move into cities that have good school districts, good schools for their children to go to. And whether it's a perception or reality, I believe that if we continue not to vote for the levies, the property values in the city of Oakdale are going to go down.
Mr. Surratt, I have another question for you. This questioner says that at some point in the future, it appears likely that Highway 36 will be improved, therefore affecting the Highway 36 and Hadley Avenue interchange. Do you feel that this improvement is necessary? And if there are costs to the city, how would this be financed?
Okay, on Hadley and 36, that's a vital intersection for the city of Oakdale. We have talked to the MnDOT and state legislature how important that intersection is. We have the new fire station up north right there, and then on the other side we have those huge apartment buildings that were just built. You have Fleet Farm, so we need that access there. And so I'd like to see it stay the way it is.
How would costs to the city, if there are any, be financed?
I think if Highway 36 gets upgraded, it should be the state of Minnesota.
So no cost to the city then?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Sheehan, is there anything on that question you'd like to add or elaborate on?
I agree. It should be, if it's 36 that's being renovated, it should be a state cost. I don't know specifically how it would be funded. If there were something off of that the city wanted to do, where the money would come from for that. But if it's just 36 that's being updated, then that should be a state funded project.
Mr. Sheehan, a question for you. Are there any areas of Oakdale that should be considered for redevelopment?
The Oakdale Center or Mall or whatever it's called now, I'm not a huge fan of that place. Not to say that I'm glad there's more businesses going in there. It's good to see. For a long time there was nothing in there besides the driving school and a few others. That's one thing I'd like to see redeveloped, but I'm not going to go out there and be like, you have to redevelop this or anything like that. It's just something that I would like to see updated. It's at a good location for redevelopment, right on that. It's a high traffic area with the movie theater and the grocery store and everything right there. So that's one area that I can think of off the top of my head. Other than that, I can't think of any areas right off the top of my head.
Mr. Surratt, are there any areas of Oakdale that you believe should be considered for redevelopment?
I also agree with John on Oakdale Mall. Also, a lot of our older housing stock, that if we can give low-income loans for those people to redevelop their houses, rehab them, bring them up to code. Also, some of the businesses along Century Avenue there, I'd like to see be brought up a little so that it, stays up.
Mr. Sheehan, a question for you as a challenger. The question is that since you're running against an incumbent who's running for re-election, what has Mr. Surratt done or failed to do that has prompted you to run for mayor?
Well, in all honesty, he hasn't done anything that's prompted me to run for mayor. The run basically stems from a past, more vigorous political interest where I told people that I would run for mayor. So in order to keep my word, I filed to run for mayor. I do think he's doing a good job. I haven't noticed anything specifically that I've thought the mayor has failed in this area. So it's not because of him or any of the other council members. I said I'd run. So,
Mr. Surratt, a question for you as the incumbent. How much time do you spend on city business? Please specify by week or by month.
It varies. It varies a lot. Sometimes it's it's hard to tell because for one thing, you really have to have access to a phone because things are going on every day that I get calls on. So it varies. It could be, I don't know, between 4 hours a week to 15 hours a week. You know what I mean? It depends on what's going on, how many meetings there are, how many workshops. People don't realize how time-consuming. When you make this commitment, there's a lot of time involved because everything doesn't happen at the meetings. You have workshops. I mean, if you came to a meeting blind, you wouldn't know what's going on. So there's preparation. And like I said, there's a lot of phone calls, and if you're the mayor, you got the ribbon cuttings, you got the groundbreakings, you got a number of other things involved.
Could you tell the voters what the salary is for mayor and, if you know, for the city council people?
I think the salary for the mayor is $7,200, and the council person is $6,000 something.
Mr. Sheehan, question for you.
A year.
A year.
yeah.
Everyone has that, I think. Mr. Sheehan, what is the appropriate use of the remaining open space in Oakdale? And please give specific property uses.
I think that one of the issues or the source of contention is whether or not to use high density housing in the remaining spaces, and I think that could be a possibility in some areas, but I don't think if we were painting with a broad stroke, that would be the best idea in every situation. I'm not completely opposed to it, but then again, like I said, in a wide area, I'm not completely in favor of either. I think we should keep, I know there's not a large percentage of land left, I think we should keep a fair amount of it for open space. But once again, within reason, we don't want to have too much open space and then completely cut off development at the same time.
Mr. Surratt, the same question for you, please. What is the appropriate use of the remaining open space in Oakdale, and could you please give some specific property uses?
Okay, the reasonable use for the property that is left in Oakdale is what it's zoned for. That's how people that own the land realize what they can do with their own land. If it's zoned for high density, that's what it should be. If it's zoned for low density, it should be that. If it's zoned commercial industrial, it should be that. We're looking at rezoning a number of parcels that we have questions on right now, and whether they get rezoned or not, I'm not sure. But I think there still is property rights in the state of Minnesota and in Oakdale, and what the zoning calls for, is what should happen. I'm for open space as much as anybody, but I'm also for property rights too.
Mr. Sheehan, I have a question here for you. It says that in light of recent mandate for licensing of rental property, do you believe that the ordinance for owner-occupied properties should also be made more strict? Why or why not? If not, how would you propose property owners who do not maintain their properties be dealt with?
Well, if you don't maintain your property, that's a good question. There should be some consequence for it. I don't know exactly what that should be, but if you're not maintaining your property, whether it be a revocation, I hope that's the right word, of the license or some fine of some sort, I really don't know. I haven't looked into it at all. But yeah, you should be required to maintain your property. It's in everyone's best interest that the city looks nice. So yeah, there should be some consequence, and owners should be required to, I assume that's what they're already required to keep it up.
Mr. Surratt, the same question to you.
Okay, we on the city council we passed an ordinance for rental property just for that reason, is so that we can go in and inspect, make sure all the code everything's up to code, property's in decent shape. One of my pet peeves, and also most of the people on the city council, is that we don't want somebody to drive into our city and see junk places. We don't want that. So we passed an ordinance for rental property, and if they don't abide by the ordinance, we fine them. I'm not sure exactly how the exact amount of the fines are, but there is a fine involved.
Mr. Surratt, I'm going to stay with you for the next question. What efforts have there been in local law enforcement, given the terrorism that has afflicted not only the United States but around the world? Have you noticed any particular increase in expenditures or other changes in the mode of operation of, say, the Oakdale Police Department?
Okay, the Oakdale Police and Fire Department have gone through training for this. Also, we do keep an eye on our water towers, our infrastructure, so we are aware of it. And like I said, we have had training in the fire department and in the police department. And also with this new fire station up north, we have one up north and one down south, so that if there's a catastrophe, we have places for people to go.
Mr. Sheehan, what efforts have you or will you make to determine the opinions of the voters? And do you seek the voters' opinions or rely on people contacting you with the issues that are important to them?
I think to some extent I'd seek people out. I would love to see more people seek me out. I've put my email address, my phone numbers, and all the stuff that's been requested in the newspaper, the Lily articles and such. I haven't gotten anything from anybody yet. So if that were to continue to be the trend, then I would seek out opinions from people. The way I'd make myself accessible, I have an email address. I check the thing. It checks every 5 minutes, lets me know if something's there. I have a cell phone I'm always on, or I always have with me, that I have no problem giving to anybody. If people wanted to call me and ask me questions, you can email me. I'll try my best to get back to you. Even if you want to call me and say that you hate my guts and whatever, I'll sit and listen. It's your opinion. It doesn't bother me much. So there's plenty of ways to be accessible. And if I wasn't getting a response and I was desperate, or not desperately, but in search of a response, I would seek out citizens.
Mr. Surratt, as mayor, how do you seek out the opinions of the voters and the people who live in the city, and how do they get a hold of you if they have a concern or issue?
Okay. I do both, seek out opinions and also get a lot of opinions. I'm easy to get a hold of. You can either reach me at my work number during the day or my home number at night, and I return all my calls, whether I like to return it or not when I know what's going to come down. But I always look into everything for you, and sometimes I can help and sometimes I can't.
We have one final question for each candidate before we wrap up the mayor segment of tonight's forum. This questioner has a specific question about the Summerfest celebration, and the question is posed in terms of this celebration costing the city several $1,000s annually. Would you be in favor of canceling Summerfest? Please explain. Let's start with Mr. Sheehan.
I'm not in favor of canceling Summerfest. I think the concept is it's a good concept. I think there's some ways it gets executed incorrectly. It's nice to see that it doesn't tear up the lawn out here so much anymore now that the rides have been moved. And I mean, it kind of defaces the City Hall area a little bit. But no, just to outright cancel it, no, I think I'd like to see some changes to it, though. And if it's costing the city and we have a budget crunch, then yeah, that would be one of the things on my list that would go first. It's not an essential item that I'd be in favor of keeping, especially if we were in a budget crunch, as we're possibly heading, more than likely not heading for.
Mr. Sirac, the same question to you, please.
Well, I would definitely want to keep Summerfest going, whether it's with volunteers, which I hope it would be, or if the city had to expend the money. It's a great gathering place. People can express their opinions there, and I think it's a bonding of the community.
I want to thank both Mr. Sheehan and Mr. Sirac, and at this point in the program, I'll turn it back over to Frank Orsello.
Gentlemen, I too want to thank you for taking the time and having some very good answers. We're going to be taking a little 10-minute break, and then our council candidates will be next in line. So with that being said, we'll break for a bit.
Thank you.
Good luck.